Am I hallucinating here? Just what in the hell do you think you're doing?
Learning about Cuba, having some food.
Mr. Elric, you're on dangerous ground here. You're causing a major disturbance on my time.
I've been thinking about this, Mr.
Howard.
If I'm here and you're here, doesn't that make it our time? Certainly there's nothing wrong with a little feast on our time.
You're absolutely right, Mr.
Elric.
It is our time. Yours, mine, and everyone else's in this room.
You asked interrogative questions
around my face. Gone.
What are you doing? What are you doing? What are you doing? Come on.
That is not paid for by them. That is paid for by the people of Detroit.
You might be qualified, ML.
I'm not qualified for this job.
Let me tell you something. You want to go right now? Okay? You want to go right now, Albert?
Hey, kids and Mr. Hand. It's great to be back here with you on the Soul of Detroit. And we're doing something that we probably shouldn't be doing, which is trying to interest you in the content of another podcast, a very well-produced podcast, a very disciplined podcast, a very successful podcast. And I say we probably shouldn't be bringing this to your attention because I'm not sure that we're going to look so good in comparison. But nevertheless, we are joined by Professor Tim Kiska, the host and the major domo of the Detroit History Podcast, which just celebrated its 5th anniversary. And their latest episode is talking about Detroit pizza. They also talk about a triple beheading, which is not one of the toppings you can get on a Detroit pizza.
As far as you know.
Above or under the cheese. Well, I guess it depends where you go. Maybe at the original Buddies. That's kind of a tough neighborhood. Maybe you could get a severed limb there. But we're gonna talk to Tim because it's election day, and I know a lot of people out there are suffering from electile dysfunction. We want to just pretend that's not even happening.
Why are you looking at me?
Which is what a lot of old guys do.
Well, because it took me 10 minutes to because I have no pressure anymore. Is that why?
You know, the only thing slower than Sean's stream of thought. Anyways, we're going to keep it sophisticated because Tim's a tenured professor. He's a learned man.
There's an adult in the room.
Do you guys know each other?
Not really.
Friends,
Not really. I just met him.
Okay.
We've crossed streams.
I see. Okay.
Never swords.
Oh boy. Okay.
Not that there's anything wrong with that.
No, there's nothing wrong with that at all.
And Mark just kind of he stays out of the tunnel. He doesn't want any trouble.
His Wolverines are 9-0. He's completely he's in a state of bliss.
Yeah, pretty much.
9-0.
Yeah.
What?
I had my phone upside down. I thought they were 0-6. I was really excited about this season, but it turns out
I know that bothers you that we're doing so well.
And Shawn is just back. They sent him to the most important and most exciting football game of the season in Champaign-Urbana, Illinois.
No, that was Rutgers. Where, by the way, you know how
that's right. They sent their most important columnist to see the most important game. Shawn went to Piscataway.
Yeah. By the way, do you know how they start their games there when the teams come out?
Where?
At Rutgers on
Where
the
they have
video
one tunnel?
board. They play the intro and the video to go with it to The Sopranos.
Yeah.
Really?
Well, he went there, right?
He did. No, James Gandolfini's an alum there, and on the drive down to Piscataway,
Not just an alum. He was a major donor before he died.
right?
Too.
But on the drive down to Piscataway from Newark, because you go into Newark if you want, right?
Yes.
You see a lot of the sites that are used in the intro. The refineries and the cranes at the port and all that. And
Did the train whistle scare you? That seemed awfully loud on TV. The train whistle they use.
It's loud. There were lots of fireworks. They had a thing called the Boardwalk that's new this year, kind of modeled after the Atlantic City Boardwalk, where they put a little miniature Ferris wheel and food trucks, and the band went through it. It's a fun scene. It's just nothing like the Big Ten.
Well,
the Big Ten wanted the TV audience out there, although they don't really care about college football out there, so it's just... Yeah.
There's probably more New Yorkers watching Penn State games than Rutgers games.
Well, let's just say I bet a third of the crowd was maize and blue for sure because of the alums out there.
Mm-hmm. Right. No, when I watched the first half, once again, Michigan getting killed in the first half, and then the team gives it to them in the second half. There's a pattern developing here.
Yeah, 52-17, that was a giveaway.
And I'm waiting to see Mark if he comes
Mark's
over
rolling
the top
his
here.
eyes.
No, I'll just they've outscored their opponents 100-3 in the second half for the last 4 games. So
what the heck happens in the locker room between halves over there? I mean, what do they say to these guys?
They adjust.
They do adjust. That's part of it.
And Harbaugh used to be terrible at adjusting early on.
I think it's part of it. It's also just when you have the more talented team, you just kind of, especially in football, you just kind of wear them out, especially at the line of scrimmage.
Harbaugh likes to win by boredom, right? Just running a lot more plays,
just physicality. Yeah,
less possessions. So
You know what he doesn't want to win? Prop 3. Have you heard the commercials on 97.1?
I have not heard
Harbaugh
of them, no.
is on the radio now, on sports radio, I think intentionally on sports radio, advising people not to vote for Proposition 3 today. And I said we'd stay out of politics, so I apologize for that. But.
Does that bother you?
No. I mean, I think coaches cause themselves trouble when they get involved in politics. I'm thinking of Dabo and Mike Gundy with their T-shirts supporting OAN and sort of all lives matter type stuff, alienating players. I think in particular, coaches at major college sports programs who are anti-abortion may be overlooking some of the conduct of some of their less responsible players. But hey, if you want to get involved in politics, it is a free country, and you know.
Yeah, but you're going to get blowback. And Ann Arbor, they wouldn't say anything to Harbaugh about none of the students or anything like that.
Not after they're 9-0.
What's funny is it's hard. I'm not sure what Harbaugh's politics are completely, but they've had a history of, even though the sport overall, especially college football, is leans conservative with head coaches, but Lloyd Carr was a card-carrying Democrat.
Well, big time, yeah.
Huge.
Yeah.
And Brady Hoke a little bit was.
And
Harbaugh sort of is,
Harbaugh's
but
pretty Catholic.
he's a Catholic Democrat.
Harbaugh's
Fun
weird.
fact, Lloyd and Harbaugh send their kids to the same elementary school. So
What's that, Mike? Sorry, it's your show.
it was a Catholic school.
Well, I mean, it's
Where I went to.
It's the second most important podcast of the day, apparently. But and Carlos and Shawn.
Well, yeah.
But,
the other podcast is attached to a company that pays the mortgage, so that's the problem. Yeah.
Speaking of mortgages, we'd like to refer you to our friends, David Hall.
Yeah, if you need one and you're a first-time home buyer right now, you're in the driver's seat when it comes to purchasing a home. Rates are up, but in this case, that's a good thing because competition is down. You'll be able to buy the house that you're looking for and refinance later at a lower rate. Over 25% increase in housing inventory just over the last year. So call Hall Financial. You can get a 5-star certified pre-approval so you're ready when you do find that right home. They have over 5,000 5-star reviews, and they'll be with you every step of the way. So if you're looking to purchase a new home or even refinance your current home or maybe get cash out of that home, call Hall Financial first at 866-CALL-HALL or get started by going to our website and clicking on the link.
May I ask you a quick question, Mike?
Yeah, Tim's pizza's getting cold, so we got to get to the pizza.
Regards, Tim. He wanted to know if you and I knew each other, if we were friends. And are we friends?
I would say I'm not particular with who I consort with. Is that,
that's okay.
Is that close enough?
That's okay. So I've got a chance.
No, I wouldn't say you have a chance. I'd say that I'd say that the bar is low and you were dragged over it.
Okay.
No, I think we're friends. I think we'd have to be friends because otherwise these inane conversations would be torturous, and as it is, they're only mildly irksome.
Oh, good word. Good
Even
word.
if they're in front of your mom.
Yeah, I'm impressed. You used the word mildly. Nice.
I like to, as you know, all things in moderation with me. And
I think we just keep Tim here laughing the whole show. That'd be great.
Fine.
Such a great laugh. That'd be great.
I'm really amused, man.
Yeah, no, Tim's sitting here. He's like, well, on my show, we'd pretty much have the story by now and do the credits. And these guys haven't even told you about Luke Nowacki yet. But we can take care of that. Toot sweet.
Oh, you know about Luke. Yeah, if you're going to make a big financial decision like purchasing that new home or a new car or anything, you want to make sure your goals are aligned. Your goals for right now, your goals for the future. And one of the people that can do that is Luke Nowacki. He's got a whole team at Pinnacle Wealth Strategies. They will plan for all your financial goals, both today and well into the future. So check out Luke. Give him a call, 248-663-4748. He's going to give you a complimentary consultation just to see where your money is, where it should be, and what your goals are. Luke will help you out.
And when you call Luke, he will make it all about you, sweetheart.
Securities and investment advisory services offered through Royal Alliance Associates Inc. Member FINRA/SIPC. Royal Alliance Associates Inc. is separately owned, and other entities and/or marketing names, products, or services referenced here are independent of Royal Alliance Associates Inc.
And now a word from my friend, Shawn Windsor.
Just one more quick thought. We were talking about The Sopranos earlier. Mark.
We were, or you
Mark,
were?
I was. Sorry, yes. Mark is
It's the royal we. He's
Mark's
from the House of
wearing-
Windsor.
I just want to say something. I said before the show I was moving all shiny objects away from you. I moved the object that you were just entertained by last week. You notice you can't find it now. I moved a giant bowl of candy away from you because I didn't want any distractions.
So you don't want me
here.
to,
I just
I can't have a bowl
we
of
should have
candy.
put a hood over your head like ML suggested.
I just want the
zippered
I guess
mouth.
you could. No, Mark is wearing. Speaking of the Sopranos, Mark's wearing the upper half of an Adidas tracksuit, so kind of a gangster look.
Track jack, really?
A gangster look, right? The
broad
gangsters
brush
like
me.
Adidas.
I just think
Is that
it's
some sort of
comfortable.
crack about Run DMC?
No, I think no. Tony Soprano liked Adidas tracksuits. Right?
Yeah, I have to have something with a zipper.
You think so?
And,
It's
comfortable. It's
dashing,
lightweight.
fetching, even.
Dashing.
Yeah,
Thank
if
you
I may
stop
say.
oogling me
Is that from the Yay line?
every week. I'm not a piece of meat.
Fetching. I love that word.
Yeah,
That's
I
a
do.
good word.
It is
Yeah,
not
thank
from
you.
the
Thank you. It's up there with mildly. Yeah.
About 20 minutes ago, I introduced Tim Kiska. And it's probably time to let him do a
All
little
right, Tim,
talking.
thanks for coming in.
Yeah, thank you. I got to find something in my car. I'm out of here. Right.
Yeah, like maybe you could rust-proof it or something. We got lots of time. But Tim is a journalism professor, Michigan Journalism Hall of Fame member, has worked for the Detroit News, the Detroit Free Press, WWJ. I think he may have actually worked for more Detroit journalism outfits than me.
That's right.
And he's also an author and the host of the Detroit History Podcast, which this week tries to get to the bottom of a question that's becoming more and more important on a national scale, which is who invented Detroit pizza?
Well, my determination on this, guy named Gus Guerra, in mid-1940s, he goes to work for a place, or he gets into a place called Buddy's, which is still around on 6 Mile and Conant, shot in a beer kind of place, and he realizes we ain't making enough money, and we've got mouths to feed. So he came up with this pizza that has undergone all kinds of changes and not much change necessarily, but it kind of spread from Shields. One of the guys went over to Shields and then went out and started up Cloverleaf, which is on the east side. We had another guy that, it's spread over the time, but basically this has been around since the mid-1940s, and which is about the same time Chicago-style pizza got on, but we never got all of the cred that we deserved until about 10 years ago. A guy named Shawn Randazzo won this big award, and everybody's going, whoa, this Detroit pizza stuff is good. And we took off. So now it's all over the country, even in places like uber hip Brooklyn. They're doing
Even
Detroit
Pizza
stuff.
Hut. I mean, Pizza Hut
Pizza
has
Hut's into
Detroit,
it.
which is, I don't know. I found that really weird because it's something we've known our whole life, and now
Right.
other people are finding it.
By the way, I think it's Queens that's uber hip now. Brooklyn's kind of passe, but go ahead.
Oh, that's right. See, but I'm the world's least hip guy. So
I'm kidding.
Tim, don't listen to him.
I'm kidding. I'm kidding. It's true, but I'm kidding.
As soon as ML started introducing you, Sean leaned into me and goes, "Where's the candy?" So now he's just chowing away.
And Tim has a couple of pieces of it. He's enjoying it.
That's fine.
Sean extended his red hook and took over the show.
right.
Which anybody who knows Brooklyn like Sean does
I'm
knows
sorry.
exactly.
It is the soul of Detroit with him, L.A. That's
up?
true. Sorry.
I listened to the episode 6, the Detroit style pizza one. I found it really interesting. I thought the most interesting point was where the pan came from.
That's
because that was just really. It really ties into everything with Detroit.
Yeah, it's mid-1940s, and this guy's going to do some pizzas. And, of course, this is 6 Mile and Conant. What's around 6 Mile and Conant? Whole ton of auto
job shops.
shops. And he decides he needs a pan, so he gets one of these square pans, and that's the legend. Starts cooking pizza in this, and that's sort of caught on that, oh, yeah, he got it from one of the automotive companies. But we got to his daughter, Gus's daughter, who owns Cloverleaf out in East Point. And she says, we don't really know where he got the pans, for God's sake. If he were alive, I would ask him, but we don't know. So it was from a hardware store or an automotive supply shop. I don't know, but whatever. That's the square pan is one of the key so-called ingredients to this thing.
So I've had square pizza all over the country, all over the world. And in the podcast, you mentioned that it's more Sicilian style. And I think the first time I saw pizza in Europe that wasn't round was in Venice, and it looked more like Detroit style pizza than other pizzas. But there's square pizza, and then there's Detroit style pizza. What's the difference?
I don't know. I don't just get. I'm the world's worst food guy, but it's the way they put it out. Some places hide the pepperoni under the cheese. Some places don't. But it has more to do with the kind of cheese that they're using and how the thing is assembled.
That's sauce on top, right?
Sauce on top. Yeah. That's the idea.
Well, what about the crust? Because
it's caramelized crust.
Yeah, when I think
they
of
grease the pan a lot, and that forms the caramelization.
Right, and that's
what gives it that kind of crinkly thing on the bottom. It's so good.
It is good.
That's the best part. Yeah, exactly. So that's where that comes from. But it's been hanging around since the mid 1940s. The Cloverleaf guy, the guy that opened up Cloverleaf, left Buddy's. And his daughter's running it now, but he opened up a place called Cloverleaf over on roughly 10 or 11 in Gratiot, right around through there.
Yeah, it's like 9 in Gratiot 9 and 10. It's a great spot. It's been there well, that's the thing. So Gus Guerra,
right.
And when you go, it's Gus Guerra's Cloverleaf,
right.
Started at Buddy's. So does Buddy's say, no, we started it, and then Gus stole it and took it to East Point, or
you know, tried.
Is there a lot of pride of place here?
You have no idea. And it's not just here, by the way. We interviewed a guy named Steve Dolinsky out of Chicago who's written books on pizza and has a pizza podcast. He says every city in America there is this jockeying about who does the best pizza here. And there's some real bad blood, without mentioning names, when we're putting this thing together. Somebody would say something nasty about somebody else. It's not good. I mean, and we have one woman who we interview on here, Karen Dibbis, who's a really sharp person. She said that those rivalries probably didn't help, as Detroit Pizza was trying to get a nationwide hold, these people sniping at each other probably didn't help that much. There's no way of really knowing. But no, it can get really nasty. And so I was this is one of these things where, you've been in the journalism, you guys have been in the journalism business all your life, where you write something, and after you write it, you start breaking into a cold sweat, thinking, oh man, did I screw something up here? And I don't think we did. We got one person yelling at us for some kind of really what I think was to be an obscure point.
What was it?
Yeah.
Oh, what it was there's Gus, and then there's a woman who was involved, who has always been part of the narrative. She was there with Gus, and she created it with Gus. This woman, we get a nasty tweet saying she had nothing to do with it. Yeah, ooh is right. And so we were getting, and so that's why I was sort of really careful every step of the way to make sure, okay, how do I know this? How do I know that? And I still may have screwed up. I don't know. It's 2 days later, and I've only gotten one person who she demanded that we take it down. And he said, well, we're not going to do that, but we're going to take out this offending phrase, which we did, just because it was difficult to prove. And it was, by the way, somebody else saying it, but we took it down anyhow because we're really nice guys.
Well, I was going to say, a responsible podcast, that makes it even more unique in the marketplace.
Tell them to go pound sand.
So,
well,
I know.
That's what you do when you wear an Adidas tracksuit.
The answer is this. You don't do that because I think, as anybody's been around this town would know, Detroit's a very small town.
Yeah.
There are only 5 people and $10, and they keep on getting passed around. And if you screw somebody, it's going to come back and haunt you.
Which is what we're going to talk about in the Gangland Sling in just a minute. But when you look at Detroit Pizza, and if you really love it, the original Buddy's is still there, and it's still
fantastic.
Yeah, I mean they've gussied up a little bit, but when you go to the original Buddy's Rendezvous at 6 and Conant, it really does feel like you're in a bit of a time machine. I mean, you can tell what it would have been like back in Detroit's heyday to eat there.
Why didn't Buddy's become a national chain? Did you ever figure that out? Because Jets is the Detroit-style pizza that's probably biggest nationwide, I would think.
I am not sure. I wish I knew the answer to that.
And meanwhile, in this region, you have, Domino's, Little Caesars, Hungry Howie's. It's really weird that all these major pizza chains were birthed out of the Southeast Michigan.
And that the best pizza's not, right? Can we just say that?
Well, Buddy's, yeah.
Don't you think Buddy's is better than Domino's and Little Caesars?
Oh, without a doubt.
I think so.
But it's different.
I think it's different, yeah. It depends what you're in the mood for.
For $5 or $5.55, whatever it is now, you're not going to get a better fast food meal than Little Caesars.
Excuse me, the McRib.
Right. That McRib, strong candidate for Geek of the Week, because they have started a scare campaign involving Brian Cox that the McRib may be going away. But I don't want to get too distracted.
You don't want to give it all away just yet. By the way, is you say you're not a food
Actually,
person?
I just don't want you to go into mourning. I want to keep the energy up.
You're not a food person,
No.
you say. But so what drew you to this? Just the history, the Detroit history?
I was just fascinated, by the history of this thing.
It is the Detroit History Podcast.
Yeah,
kind of a
right.
giveaway in the title, but
Yeah, but I think that was part of it. The other one is I eat pizza. I get the Cloverleaf because there's one over.
and that's the original.
Well, there's the original antenna on Gratiot, but there's another smaller one over on Harper, right around an 8.5 mile road.
Okay.
And I probably get pizza there every week.
How did you survive Norway then? If you aren't very adventurous with your eating?
Well, no, we're not adventurous. In other words, at my critical facilities.
Oh, I see.
In other words,
Okay.
I will not
My
criticize
fault.
anything. My wife and I have been married for 42 years, and she loves to cook, and I've told her in 42 years I've never had a bad meal because I'm so uncritical that, as I said, here's my rule of thumb, as long as I don't projectile vomit at the table,
It's a very low bar, Tim.
it's a very low bar.
Wow, dishing out compliments like that, it's hard to believe you've been married for 42 years.
By the way,
But,
can you say who this person is? Just one of the most
Yeah.
badass journalists we've all ever known in this room.
Yeah, Pat Anstead, my wife.
she's also the host of the Lutefisk podcast. They'll be doing the original Lutefisk place in Norway. It's a big show.
What's the
Also a member of the Journalism Hall of Fame.
What's the history of the Detroit History Podcast? I mean, is this your baby?
My baby, entirely. What it was I tell you how this started. I knew I'd started hearing a little bit about podcasts, and there's an outfit that does Crime Town. They did a whole thing around
good.
Detroit.
Yep.
But they're very good. But the first one I heard was on
Providence, right?
Providence, and I listened to that, and I went. It's sort of like that scene in Wizard of Oz where everything
I was
goes.
into color and
I'm going, wow. This is a great way to tell history. And then I read, I picked up Malcolm Gladwell's Revisionist History. And I'll tell you exactly which one he did that I just thought was fantastic. It was the Wilt Chamberlain when he scored 100 points in one game. And there is, by the way, no tape of that game.
just that picture.
And I'm thinking, okay, good luck. How do you spin a story around that without any audio? And he did it fine. This is great. This is great stuff. And I've been a history nut since I was a kid. And I grew up in this town on the east side, not too far from Elric here. And I've always been that way since I was a kid. I'm not crying here. I'm just my eyes are watering. I've always been that way since I was a kid. And I thought, man, I got to get into this. So we jumped into it. And the first one we did is I decided to take a look at the Beatles were here twice in the 60s, 64, 66. So we did one on that. We started getting into other topics. I had started a book on the history of Detroit and got a number of chapters, 50,000 words of this thing written. And I says, okay, I've already got the research. Why don't I put it into the podcast? So that's how this thing got started. Just sheer, I just love the topic. I could blather forever on this. And it's just, I got to tell you, fun.
They're a great length too. I mean, they're about a half hour, right?
Yeah,
Most of them
20
are about-
minutes to a half an hour.
Perfect.
Which is awesome.
Yeah. Can we do that?
Well, we do provide 26 minutes of quality content every episode.
The rest is Shawn.
It's just
I figured one of you
somehow
was
it takes us an hour and a half to get that 26 minutes.
We could see that one coming.
So are you
don't
when
filter it
you're
out.
looking for topics? Are you specifically looking for? Because the pizza one to me is interesting. I'd just taken my kids to Buddy's for the first time ever, and they had never seen that kind of pizza. So I'm kind of trying to explain it to them.
Yeah.
And it's just kind of fun to learn about it.
Right.
But there's so many situations in this city because it used to be just, the number 4 city in America, population wise, people flee. I mean, there's so much history here that are unknown. Are you looking for those stories? Or are you looking to go deeper in the known stories?
No, we actually were trying to stay a little bit away from the known stories. So I won't do Motown.
Okay.
Because what am I going to say about Motown that has not been said about 1,000 times before? I won't do the 67. Well, I might, but the 67 rebellion / riot. It's been done a lot. So what I've done is I've done the 1943, and that was a riot.
Yeah.
It was not a.
No one ever talks about that one.
Nobody talks about that. I did another one in 1863,
The Civil War.
Civil War with the Free Press.
Also no audio from that.
No audio.
Yeah.
But I mean, so you end up doing, you hope to be creative things. Like, so for instance, there was somebody right after that riot that what happened is, cutting to the chase, guy that's thought to be African American who's not, gets brought up on rape charges. He gets convicted. A white mob goes crazy and starts running amok in the African American neighborhoods. The African Americans have to run into the woods. Some of them have to flee into Canada to get away from this thing. But somebody went back and interviewed all of these people, or a lot of these folks, and the transcripts of these interviews are actually, they're technically at Duke University, but I got a hold of these things. And so I had somebody, not voice actors, just friends of mine, read it.
Oh, wow.
And it works pretty well.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I mean, so that's what
theater on the mind. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's what we're always looking for something. The only thing, two things that matter: telling people something that they don't know. That's the key. And the other thing is it interesting? I think I can say this on this air here. It's the Wogus test. Who gives a shit?
Yeah.
And if it doesn't pass the Wogus test, we try not to use it.
Yeah, we're thinking of implementing that
test. Yeah, we
test,
struggle with that here.
Yeah, right.
Sometimes we have the wokest test.
Right.
But it's not the same thing.
Yeah, right, the Wokus test.
So the podcast tackles a lot of different subjects, and one of the things that really captured my imagination, because we are having this surge in true crime, is when you talk about crime and Crime Town. This is Crime Town. We've had more crazy murders, and we've got our own mob, and we've had all this other stuff going on here. This seems like a ripe place for people to tell true crime. And this season, you guys tackle a particularly grisly episode where not one but 3 people were beheaded over some sort of beef.
Yeah, it was a fight in the drug wars, and the way that came about was. Short version, I was at a Alan Lengel was putting
from Deadline Detroit,
and I was at
friend of the show.
Pardon? Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah. Anyhow, I was at the new Miami or the old Miami?
The old Miami.
The old Miami. I was at the old Miami, and I was talking to Rick Boy, my buddy, and we ended up talking about crime. I remember getting a letter once from Chester Wheeler Campbell, a hitman who was upset with something. He was in Jackson for killing a bunch of people. Well, might have been. Maybe more than one.
He was the one who complained about the Detroit pizza.
Yeah, right, exactly.
And that's why you took it out, because when a hitman complains, you're like, oh, we better take that out.
He wrote me a letter, and he's crazy, but not stupid, and he wrote me a letter. He's now dead, so I don't have to worry about this, but said he wanted to meet me after.
In an alley?
He didn't say.
Oh, okay.
And he didn't say what would happen after he met me, but I thought that was pretty interesting, all of that. But anyhow, I'd heard about that, and I was talking to Bowie, because Bowie used to be a Detroit news reporter, and he had set something up where he wanted to do a crime story. He wanted complete access to the next big crime that happened. It so happened that
I don't have to wait very long for the next big crime back in the late 70s.
Late 70s. The
crack cocaine, everything's going crazy.
The crack cocaine was a little later.
Okay.
Yeah. But you still had an outfit called Murder Row. And they were like a full service. Usually, by the way, these outfits where they were into drugs or they were into gambling or they were into prostitution. These guys were full service. I mean, and anyhow, there was a rivalry going on. And the next thing you know, somebody's walking by this van right around on Harper and notices there's blood dripping out underneath the van. Ooh, is right. And that's when the cops got called, and they opened this thing up, and there it was, 3 beheaded bodies stuffed in garbage bags. And
the heads were in separate bags, or were they in a separate location?
That's a good question. I had a couple of questions about that. I'm not sure how many garbage bags there were. An odd factoid, there's 3 people. 2 of the 3 had both hands cut off. The third person had only one hand cut off. Why they didn't cut the other hand off is sort of curious to me. But that's what happened. And shall I do the spoiler alert about how these guys?
Well, what if the last person cut off everybody's hands and could only cut off their one hand?
Or maybe it got.
And they cut off their head after that.
I don't know.
It's something to think about.
Yeah, it's something to think about. But
food for thought.
Yeah, food for thought, but that's what happened. Well, I'll give you, should I do the spoiler alert? I mean, what happened? Sure. Here's what happened. These guys killed these 3 people. They were shot at point blank range. Mm-hmm. And then the guy named Adolph Powell, also known as Doc Holliday, who was the guy that wanted these people taken out just to show their boss, a guy named Frank Nitty Usher, that I'm the boss now. So they put the bodies in this van in garbage cans, take off, and they're going to bury the bodies. And they have the van followed by some guys who are going to do the burying in a passenger car. And they're on their way out. They're probably about 5 minutes away. And they turn to somebody says, "Hey, Elric, did you bring the shovel?"
They
And the other
forgot
guy
the
was-
shovel.
Sounds like Goodfellas when they're trying to get rid of Billy Bats, right?
Yeah. Well, that's exactly what
Back to
happened.
Mom's house.
Yeah. Did you bring the
Get
shovel?
the lime, get the lime, get the shovels,
That's it.
get the steak knife.
Well, that was it. They forgot. So instead of, by the way, just both the van and the car turning around and going back and getting the shovel and then taking off, they just decided to park the van and get in the car and go back and get the shovel. And so the van's sitting there, and that's when somebody just, in random, says, "I can't help but notice her."
I wonder if they returned and then saw,
Well-
police there. I mean, do we know that?
We're not sure about that. Ultimately, you got testimony from the doorman who had nothing to do with this. This was done at a place called a social club, the Michigan Democratic Social Club, which has nothing to do with the Democratic Party, for the record.
Or being social.
Yeah, actually, I'm told they had great parties there that would run from Friday. I hadn't been invited to
You lose your head.
exactly, but they would run from Friday to Monday.
Oh.
Which is
And just as a point of clarification, this happened in 1979.
Right.
Tim said, "Elric, let's go get the shovels." In fact, I didn't kill somebody until the 80s, so this was a different group.
and you're still covered by statute of limitations, as I understand.
There's no statute on murder, but so maybe I should just say I was being
accessory.
facetious. Yeah.
Right, exactly. So, I mean, it was sort of what happened, what was going on in Murder's Row that would put all this together. But anyhow, the reason this came about is I was talking to Boy at the Miami, and he was telling me about this stuff, and I said, "Man, that's a great podcast." So I talked to Rick. I talked to Joe Swickard, who used to cover Detroit Recorder's Court for the Free Press and covered a lot of these sort of things, had a kind of a bigger perspective, and a guy named Scott Bernstein, who's been
Love Scott.
Scott
Great guy.
Yeah, great guy and is serious. So we spent some time over at his place,
Yeah.
having him talk about it, and he's sort of almost the main
He's
narrator.
like the expert of
Detroit
anything
mob.
gang related, mob related in Detroit.
But this mob, this was not the Italian mob. This was
No.
the black mob, right?
That's correct.
So this is a separate organized crime.
Except, but it was
it was
tied
back though, right? Wasn't it,
was
back
back.
by the Italians?
Frank,
Yeah.
yes, it was. And the only reason, okay, so I'm giving the whole podcast away. There's Frank Usher there was Adolph Powell, Doc Holliday, who wants to run Murder's Row, and Frank Nitty Usher is running Frank, and they're vying. And then when Powell Doc Holliday decides to get rid of Usher, he kills 3 people right in front of Usher, makes him participate in the dismemberment as a message to him saying, "Okay, I'm in charge now."
Sounds like some Kaiser Soze stuff where you're like, I'll show you what ruthlessness is really about.
Right. But here's the thing that you're not going to get an answer to is you would go, "Okay, Mr. Powell, why don't you kill Usher?" Well, Usher's mentors were the Jackalonis. The
So he's
Jackaloni.
protected.
You don't mess with them.
He's protected. And as Bernstein points out, he says, as much of a badass as Doc Holliday thought he was, if he took out Usher,
It's the end of it all.
he would have the Jackalonis on their back. So, which makes me wonder, how crazy are the Jackalonis? That a guy that just watched 3 people get their heads cut off,
Is scared of
these guys.
Yeah.
So
Right.
I'd like to find out more about, or maybe I wouldn't like to find out.
So Tim is saying that he's given away the whole podcast. He's not, because there's so many more great elements to it. And I want to get you to give us one more of them, because one of the things that I found so fascinating about the podcast was the woman who stood up to these guys.
Right, Joanne Clark.
Yes. Tell us a little bit about that and how you found out what she said, because it was, I mean, it's, Tim will tell you.
Well, Bernstein was the one who interviewed, and I believe he's taken this from courtroom testimony. But Joanne Clark are these 2 guys, and Joanne Clark, 3 people, and they realize they're going to die. They're going to be shot in the head, and they didn't know anything about the beheading. And so the 2 guys are begging for their lives. And Joanna Clark says, "Okay, you guys are so tough. Why don't you just get this over with? You're so tough." Can I use the F-bomb on this air?
Yes. Go ahead.
Ask Shawn.
Can I? All right.
Yeah, he's
filthy
Shawn.
Yeah, but it was basically what Bernstein is saying is that she starts going, you're so tough. You think you're going to just get it over with. Get it over with. And by the way, go fuck yourself. And
I'm sure that was received well.
Yeah, it was. And but what was curious, Boy on this podcast talks about he went with the cops to get they went to her house and get in the house. Everything's locked up tight. They get in, so they go downstairs and they're those old line ice cube trays that used to have ice cubes in.
Yep.
They had empty ice cube trays, and there were like love notes in each one of these things to different people. Why that was?
That's weird.
Yeah, I thought so too.
But I want to go back to this because she tells him this, and they do kill her.
Yeah.
Correct.
But you know what she said. How do you know what she said?
Well, Scott told me that, and I think he got that from courtroom testimony.
So that would have been someone who was present when this happened, who
Right.
later
And
recounted it.
And he's interviewed some other people who know all about this thing because obviously word got out pretty quickly.
Okay.
And so now here's the other thing.
Who ended up getting busted for it? I mean, how high up were they able to?
Well, Usher was convicted, and then the conviction overturned, and he was acquitted.
That's when he hooked up with Justin Bieber.
Right. That's right.
Is that a different Usher?
Yeah, different.
That's a very lame
exactly.
joke.
Yeah, that's a good joke. But
No,
anyhow,
it wasn't good. But.
Usher, baby.
right.
Sean, was it a good joke?
No, I'm sorry. I tuned out. I just want to hear
Sean's
Tim.
more of a babyface guy. Babyface Edmonds?
No, see that? Or Babyface the musician. I mean, that is a much better joke
Or
building a terrible
Babyface
joke.
Nelson, right? We got Frank Nitti. We may as well have Babyface Nelson in here.
I didn't know there were so many shared names between R&B artists and gangsters.
Yes.
Well, what was funny, by the way, not funny, I don't know if this is funny or not, but he was known as Frank Nitti Usher. Nitti was the nickname he was given by the Jackalones after, for those who don't know, a great Chicago crime boss.
Yeah, a ruthless trigger man, the guy who would do what no one else had the nerve to do.
They get to the second trial where he's being retried, and the judge, David Kerwin, says, you can't refer to Mr. Usher's middle name, or that nickname, Nitti, because if you're a jury, you're going to sit there
prejudicial.
And go, yeah. And Swickard points out in this thing that, well, actually, I'm not sure this one made the podcast, but the really bad guys, you don't want to have a nickname because that means you've done something serious to earn that. And so that's Frank Nitti Usher. But he was acquitted ultimately. And the defense was.
But Nitti, they made him dismember him, but he wasn't the shooter, was he?
No, he was not. And that's why he got acquitted.
Okay.
Because the bottom line is he didn't participate in the crime.
But did they get the shooters?
Actually, they've got, I think, one or two guys. My brain is fogged at the moment. Powell never got convicted. He was acquitted. He ends up getting hit.
He's not still alive, is he?
Yeah.
No.
It was
No.
Okay, I just want
What
to
happened?
say,
another gang hit, right?
Yeah, it was a gang hit. He was at a place that was a well-known kind of where if you're a gangster, this is you hung out, and he was buying somebody a shot. He had the testimony was a $50 bill or a $100 bill, but a lot of money in his right hand. So they have to do a shot, expecting the other guy to do a shot, and he did a shot all right, but it was not a whiskey. He pulled out a gun, blew him away, and
Keep the change.
Keep the change. Nobody was ever convicted. In fact, nobody was ever even arrested because it just, boom, it was done. And see, the thing is, I haven't had to cover a lot of crime and homicide. I've covered some, but the really good ones, you're never going to find out. I mean, I've covered one where a guy got shot to death in the David Whitney building on the 8th floor. Short version, he's a jeweler. There's a point to this story, which he's a jeweler, and what the mob does sometimes is if they get your jewelry, they'll move the diamond
stones,
from one ring to another. Well, something
they didn't do this at Kiska Jewelers.
No,
that was
we didn't
a
do that.
reputable business.
Not as far as you know.
That's
right.
Allegedly,
right. So, but the bottom line is something happened. There are only two offices in this. I think it's the 8th floor of the Whitney building. A woman on one end hears this shot on the other end, or a couple shots, and then she comes out and sees this guy at the guy in a trench coat at the elevator, and he gets in the elevator, and she goes in and sees the jeweler dead, runs downstairs, and sees a cop and says, "There's a dead man up there." And then the elevator doors open, and there's the guy. And she goes to the cop, "Get him! That's the guy." So they get him, they grab him. And here's the thing: you guys, you may know more about how this works, but he had no.
Again, with me being a killer.
Right. He had no fingerprints.
Oh.
He had no ID, no wallet. Usually, if something wanted to go after me, they could look in my clothes.
Yeah.
All of the labels were cut out. This guy was from nowhere. And so they said, okay, they grabbed him and they started, okay, what's your name? All he would say was, "My lawyer's name is," and here's his number. And the cops would go, "Come on, but that, wow, what,
Yeah, that's the old third degree days with the hot light and the rubber hose and.
Yeah, well, it didn't work because this guy was a pro, and what I'm suggesting is it's not surprising, but Murder Row, I think Swickard says that they were responsible for at least a dozen murders. And there were some other outfits that were even more than that, but they were really good.
That's great. I've lived here my whole life, and I never heard that story about, the last one about the social club and
Right.
the beheading. It reminds me, too, of Vincent Chin, that murder. Like, I never had heard of that and grew up here my whole life.
Really?
I never.
Oh, God. I remember when it happened. It was
Do you really see that?
horrible.
That
Oh,
one
yeah.
just, it's one that happened and seemed to disappear. And there's a bunch of stories like that, I would imagine.
The Chin one has not disappeared. That thing is
It's really come back, but it's
has.
one thing I didn't know about even living here until, a few years ago when it started coming back with all the,
Right.
hate towards Asian stories
Right.
that came out. Yeah.
Well, I covered the hate crime trial in federal
Did you?
court, the
Okay.
first one. And this is a rather unpopular point of view, but I saw this. One of the guys was acquitted in Detroit on the hate crime. The other one was convicted, but then retried down in Cincinnati, and he was acquitted. But I became pretty convinced that this was a drunken brawl that got out of hand.
It was the father and son, right?
Yeah.
Father and the son, and not that Vincent Chin. I mean, here's my bottom line: these guys needed to go to Jacktown for murder. No question about it. There's just no question that they killed this guy in the middle of Woodward Avenue with a baseball bat. All right. Was there hate? Was there a hate crime? Were they going after him because of his agents? I thought personally, I thought the evidence was dicey at best, and that always got lost. So a lot of us came to the same conclusion that we're covering this: was this a hate crime, and should they go to jail for a hate crime? And I don't think we didn't think, a lot of us didn't think he was involved in a hate crime, but he was involved in a murder and needed to be in jail for that. So then the next debate was, okay,
Start with the murder.
Start with the
Start with
murder,
that and
but,
get 'em
but
put away, yeah.
that's,
And they were convicted, right? And received fairly light sentences, I thought.
not fairly. I mean, they plead. I think they pleaded out. It's out of my head. They pleaded out, and I think they got very light sentences. I think there was probation, and there might have been some fines. But they basically skated after killing a guy in the middle of Woodward Avenue with a baseball bat.
And for people who don't remember it, at the time, this is when the big three were getting killed by the Japanese automaker, and Vincent Chin was at a bar with these guys, or they were at some sort of thing, and he was beaten to death. And at the time, the narrative was they beat him to death because they were displaced auto workers going after a Japanese man. And I think there was some dramatic moment where Vincent Chin's last words were, "I'm Chinese," or something. And it was a mistaken identity hate crime. And then the sentences were, these guys basically got away with it. And then, it was a real flashpoint around here. And then nationally kind of picked up steam.
Yeah, and the other thing too,
and as Mark pointed out, has been revisited because I think there was a documentary not too long ago, and it was a horrific crime.
Well, my buddy Bill Kubota, who is of Japanese descent, spent a good chunk of his life looking at this thing, and there's a whole, particularly Asian American historians, scholars, for whom that thing is still hotly, not debated. That's not right, but it's still being studied. It's never gone away. And your point about, the auto industry is just wiped out. And this would be the first time, I think, you're a native Detroiter. I think people were saying, this is cyclical, but this one feels different. The Japanese seem to like to know what they're really doing. But I think what really got to me was a short version. My dad was the only non-Japanese guy in a watch repair shop. Everybody else were of Japanese descent, had been drafted out of the camps, because most people don't know, but thousands of
internment camps.
Internment camps got out of that, and they ended up fighting for us in World War II. And so I was brought up. The head guy for the shop was a guy named Sus Hatta, and he saw my byline on the story. Now, Sus, it was a true great American. He ended up, I've been reading about him lately. He was working for the CIA, or it wasn't CIA back then. Intelligence. OSS. But he was doing all kinds of important stuff that he never told anybody about. He calls up my mother after he sees the byline of my story about this killing. And his line was, "I thought it was safe to go out again," unquote. That just got me right here, because here's this guy that fought for this country, who was just put food on my family's table for so many years, and he's wondering about going out again. I thought, that's why that thing still has legs.
And last year in season 4 of Detroit History Podcast, you did one about the Japanese that came here from the internment camps.
That's right, and it was part of it. And I talk about Sus, and I have a rant in there about how.
So then now I'm wondering, what stories do you like doing more? Do you like doing a triple beheading or pizza?
No, I mean, it's just different things.
Yeah.
If I just did nothing but crime, I don't know. This is such I don't have to tell anybody here. This is such an incredible town that, I've done stuff on the symphony, the Detroit Symphony, how it developed in the 20s. I did the Beatles. I did how Dearborn became an Arab American center. So, I mean, it's almost like this big, hodgepodge of stuff that's out there.
As long as it's interesting.
That's all that matters.
Point, yeah.
Yeah. Can we?
The Wokus test.
The Wokus test.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah.
And it comes from everywhere. And that's why I like my son, who's a really important part to this podcast. He's considerably younger than I am. And my
that happens a lot with fathers and sons.
That's right. Exactly. Thank goodness. But
almost every time, in fact.
Yeah, right. But he's great at, before we do anything, we passed it, or 3 of us pretty much, that we all get a vote. And so if I come up with something and he says, "Oh God, that's boring," we don't do it.
How often does that happen?
It happens.
Does it?
A fair amount.
Yeah.
And then there's some other stuff, though, that he'll say, "Let's do this," and I'm saying, "I'm not so sure about this." And then it turns out, well, we did a whole thing on busing in the early 70s, which I thought for sure was not going to be.
That was a great episode. That came out a few years ago, as I recall.
Yeah.
And it was Thurgood Marshall was a part of it. I mean,
right.
Huge topic.
Right. And yeah, it was a huge topic, because if you grew up around here, your parents, that's probably all they would have talked about in the early 70s is, am I going to send my son or daughter? I mean, instead of them being in Grosse Pointe, they're going to be out in God knows where. And this was a huge deal, and it ends up all the way out to the Supreme Court. You mentioned Thurgood Marshall. The Supreme Court tapes stuff. And when he gave his dissenting opinion, the busing thing got shot down 5-4. He gave this thing that makes you want to weep, which he essentially says everything that I was involved in, starting with the Brown Board of Education, which he was involved in. It's 15, 16 years later, he says, that's all done. Everything that I've worked on for all of those years is finished. And you kind of go, wow, But that was Eric's idea. Eric says, we got to do busing. And I'm going, I'm not sure. I lived through that.
So listen to your son.
Yeah, I do.
What's the short version of Dearborn?
Dearborn? Well, there's I teach there. I've taught there for a bunch of years, and it's always been fascinating to me how that has become, how Arab culture has become, really an important part of that thing. So I just said, we got to do this, and we did. That was the one that got very curious reactions. The FBI got involved in this one because we put this thing up, and somebody posted a note, since this doesn't go over I can use the F-bomb again.
Yes.
All right. The quote, direct quote, "Bang, bang, you fucker, your time is coming," unquote.
That's what somebody sent to you for the podcast.
That's right. And so it wasn't the you F-bomb that bothered me. It was the bang, bang part.
Right.
So I go talk to security and at UM Dearborn. Not that I'm worry about anybody coming in and shoot me. That'll probably come out of nowhere if that happens. But anyhow, so I go see them, and they said, we probably should. The FBI's we have good relations with the FBI, and they don't want to blow any more cases because there were a couple that they just blew. And sure enough, 12 hours later, they're on the phone with me and my son taking statements. And I don't know whatever happened. I think they visited the guy, but he never put anything in there.
Well, so the thing about Dearborn that's fascinating is this was a white enclave that had a mayor for decades who would not let black people come to Dearborn, Orville Hubbard. Right. And now it's an Arab American. Orville Hubbard must be sitting here. It must be like that moment in Blazing Saddles where it's like, we didn't want the Indians here, and now we got the blacks, and they're darker than Indians. He must be saying, I kept all the blacks out, and now I got these dark-skinned folks with funny accents. He must be losing his mind.
Well,
which to me sounds like sweet justice.
Yeah, you could say karma on this thing. But no, he did, by the way, get involved in a suit because he figured, okay, I'll fix this Arab thing. And he
wasn't dead by then.
No. He saw one section of the city was starting to become increasingly Arab, and he wanted to rezone the whole place and start putting up factories and stuff like that, which makes sense because for the city's coffers, they would have made him a lot more money. So they decided, okay, we're gonna wipe out that one area. Well, there was a federal lawsuit, which the group that challenged him won, and so that was the end of that. Okay.
What was the original country where folks came from?
Oh, all over the place. The thing that I think gets sort of mixed up is that people think Mideast, it's like one big place. But, Lebanon, Syria, different
I was going to
places.
say Syria because,
there are a lot of Syrians, a lot of Lebanese, but these days you're getting a lot of Yemenis.
And they weren't back then directly from some of those countries, right? Weren't they coming to New York or Queens and some places and then getting a little too crowded there and then come here?
Yeah, and I think then word got out that, okay, if you come to Dearborn, there are people that speak your language.
More affordable, too.
To that point, can I ask you guys' opinion on something? Because I had somebody say this to me once, and I'm not as worldly as you three.
I'm not worldly. They are.
You travel a lot. You've lived in a lot of different
I've been
places.
to Piscataway, yeah.
So maybe,
we don't know as much about Brooklyn as Shawn does.
But Shawn, you've lived in a lot of different places.
I've been to Queens. I took a plane there.
And
my daughter lives there, so there.
Someone has told me that the Detroit metro area is just so more incredibly segregated by ethnicity than any other metro area they had ever been to. And I'm like, well, you go to New York.
Chicago's like that.
They have Chinatowns in every major city. They have, Polish people like in Chicago. Yeah, where certain ethnicities live.
Except we don't have a Chinatown. But
we used to.
Yeah.
Not anymore.
But I mean, you pretty much know, Dearborn's Arabic. The city of Detroit is black, right? You really know the different areas around here where people are from. Is that true? Is this area more segregated than any other?
It's incredibly segregated.
But more than any metropolitan area, like Los Angeles?
I think it is. At least that's what the Census Department says.
Okay.
That it really, they're the ones.
Bill McGraw used to talk about this a lot.
Yeah.
Right about this, yeah.
Yeah, and it is true. I mean,
why? Why is that?
I don't know. Elra, Karen, and I both grew up on the East Side. I all I can tell you is when I was growing up, part of it was over at Mac and Shawn, and Connor, which is some ways not too far away, about a mile. That was like the dividing line. And if you stepped over Connor and you were white, you got your ass kicked. I tried that 3 times. 3 for 3, baby. And I'm sure that any African-American kid who came over Connor probably had a hard time. Somebody was going to beat them, or the cops are going to pull you over with your bicycle and say, "Where'd you get that bicycle, kid?"
Oh yeah, the Grosse Pointe cops were notorious for having a call nomad, which meant N-word on Mac after dark. The police would, if they saw a brother walking down Mac Avenue, which is the dividing line between Grosse Pointe and Detroit.
I'm not talking about just black and white
Terrible
either.
stuff.
I mean, you have Hamtramck, right? I mean, that was always Polish. Now it seems to be Somalian.
Well, Yemeni too.
Well, Bangladeshi too.
Yeah.
Bangladeshi and a lot of different
And some Eastern European groups now there too, right?
Totally.
Beyond not just Poland, but
Yeah, but that's kind of, I don't know if it's in our DNA.
Is that just from people coming over here for the automotive industries and they?
I think it's the way people came here, right?
Right.
That started with I mean, black folks coming up in a couple of different waves, World War II, and then again in the in the 60s for factory work and settling in certain places. Ypsilanti, where I'm next to Ann Arbor, where I live out that way, that's very segregated,
right?
In a very similar way that Detroit is,
but worse than other metro areas.
I'm told.
It just.
Really? I think there's a lot of metro areas that are segregated. I think people cluster and then they
it's just
disperse. But
human
well, I think it's a combination of a lot of factors of how people came, the one industry town, when it failed, white folks flying out of here in a way that's obviously happens in other places too.
Right.
But because we're an older city and just the patterns and the timing of everything, it was just a little bit a unique stew here.
Yeah, it is a unique stew, and it's the auto industry. When the $5 day happened, in
giant one company town, right?
Pretty much,
and then it collapsed at the same time, and the way people are moving. But
this city was a lot more diverse economically as well. I mean, we used to make cigars here.
Stoves down on the river, right? Old iron,
and the salt mines.
Pharmaceuticals.
My great grandfather came from Ohio and lived in Southwest Detroit and worked in the salt mine. There was a lot more industry here. But when you go to Detroit, particularly on the east side, there's the Deutsch House, which was a huge, massive bunker, really, that was a German social center. It's now a Baptist church. And not too far from there is the Polski Hall, which is, again, like Mount Elliott and maybe Warren. Big Polish cultural center. Now it's locked up. There's Slovak Hall, which is north of 94. That's all closed down. But there used to be these little ethnic enclaves. And my great-grandfather, when he lived in Southwest Detroit in Springwells, there were all these Eastern Europeans. He spoke Hungarian. He was from Hungary. There were Romanians, there were Bulgarians, Czechoslovakians, and they all spoke these Slavic languages, and no one spoke each other's language, but they could kind of communicate. And until about 20 years ago, and maybe to this day, I just haven't been back there, there's a Catholic church in Delray in Southwest Detroit, one of the most impoverished parts of Detroit, where they were still doing a Catholic mass in Hungarian.
Yep.
So there was diversity, but I think people did start to move out to the suburbs even before the riots and the civil rebellions.
It started in the early 50s.
Because they want to have a little more land. They want to have a little more room. And
it's not just that, though, right?
Oh, it's a
well, then there's the blockbusters, and there's people saying, then there's busing, and look who's moving in next to you, and you need to get out of here.
That part
There's a combination of things, too, but there's no question that one reason why people, hit 8 Miles because they were a little worried about who was moving in right next to them, and they didn't look like their buddy Stash.
Right. And I don't know,
He looked like a guy who moved up here from Alabama.
Well,
and it wasn't Tom Jones, despite his very fine
Mississippi.
song, "The Green Grass of Home."
Yeah, but I remember. When the '67 Rebellion riot happened,
Revolution.
Revolution. I lived on Mac, not too far from Chalmers, my next door neighbors. Short version is I was in a summer band at Jackson Junior High School, which is just up the block.
Which is now closed, but a beautiful school.
It was a cool school. But about
swimming pool on the first floor, as I recall.
I swam there many times. Yes, indeed. But
don't jump in now.
Yeah, but half the kids in the band were African American, half of them were white. And I remember going to the band practice right after this happened, after they opened up the school again. And we didn't know what to say to each other. It's sort of like our parents just went crazy. The town just burned down. Me personally, I sat around, we'd moved not too far away, second day of the rebellion riot. It had already been prearranged, but sitting in my front porch, listening to the gunfire. And we sort of sat there and went, what the hell's what's next? And I remember sitting in that band practice thing, and we're all looking at each other going, now what? Because we didn't know, at that time. And you're maybe about old enough to remember some of this stuff where maybe it's because I turned 15 in the middle of that thing, but the impact that it had on me personally there's no way to calculate it. That's probably why I got so interested in the news business, which is how in the hell did this happen? And I'm still trying to find out the answer to that.
Just to clear things up, I may have been an embryo in 1967, but here's the sad part. I live not too far from the old Kiska family jewelers.
That's right.
And on a regular basis, we still do hear a lot of gunfire. It's just not, not in an organized manner.
Well, this one was, and I still remember to this day, it was a gun battle at Mac and St. Jean, which was not that far away. And I find out later, that the next day there was a firefighter by the name of Carl O. Smith. I remember his name, who was shot to death. He was he's putting on a fire. Gunfire erupts. He tries to hide behind a trash can. Which, of course, wasn't good enough. And I still wonder to this day, did I hear the shot that killed Carl O. Smith? I don't know.
Damn.
I'll never know. But so an answer, I think,
So that's your answer to the Dearborn thing. That's your
Sorry.
No, and to your question, though, Detroit's not the only city that's segregated. But Chicago is fairly, Mike, you live there. Chicago is fairly segregated north to south, right?
Correct.
And even lake to the west. A little bit too, like where Isaiah Thomas grew up in the west side of that town.
And that town actually has neighborhoods, Ukrainian Village. They're named after, and there's still a few Irish enclaves there. And if you're black and you rode through Ma Daly's neighborhood, there's a good chance you're gonna get your ass beat. And that wasn't that long ago. So there's a lot of segregation, that's kind of one of those things where I don't know whether we're first or in the top 10, but it's not good. It's not good.
No, it's not.
So, Tim, thank you for coming on. Congratulations on all the success with the podcast.
What else is coming up in season 5? Like, what other topics?
What I'm working on right now is 1969. The rumor goes out that Paul McCartney is dead.
That's a great one.
Yeah, so we're working on that. I'm interviewing. There was
Spoiler alert, he's not.
Right,
that started from the Michigan Daily, didn't it?
Well, the guy that wrote the pieces for the Michigan Daily, we're interviewing him.
Oh, cool.
Tomorrow. No, day after tomorrow. And he wrote that. I still have a guy named Russ Gibb, who was a big deal back in the day as a rock and roll promoter, had his own radio show, and he was the one who, spoiler alert, we're doing that one, but I was in high school, and if you take some of those Beatle records and turn them backwards, kind of like
I Buried Paul.
I Buried Paul, or the other one was Turn Me On, Dead Man.
Mm-hmm.
Turn Me On, Dead Man. Well, half the kids in my high school ruined their turntables trying to do this, because it's not like they've got the folks that are doing rap and stuff, and they're able to.
Yeah.
Stuff.
There's no.
So we're doing that one. We're doing the one on ketamine.
Oh, wow.
Which started here.
Yeah.
In Detroit, and how that happened.
Was that really tight?
That was also Gus Guerra.
Yeah, Gus Guerra, right. He was
pushing the cat.
Yeah, right, exactly.
Sorry, Mrs. Guerra, that's a joke.
You think that's the secret to Buddy's Pizza?
You can get anything out of it. Yeah,
yeah, that's right. Ketamine's in it, right? It's good stuff.
Why it's so addictive. I can't get enough of it.
Well,
do you have a favorite, by the way? I mean, I don't want to keep you here too much longer because I know you got a podcast. But
thank you.
What's your favorite?
You know what? 43. The 43 riot. Nobody.
Oh, sorry, I meant pizza.
That sounds like a good pizza, though.
Oh, Cloverleaf.
Not your favorite riot. I mean, you got a few to choose from, but
your favorite riot.
Yes. That 1863, boy.
They were whipping it up.
You want a pure body count? That's your walkaway winner.
I'm still hooked on Cloverleaf because they're right down the block. They're great, but they're all good. Like I said, I have no critical facility as long as I don't become really sick at the table. I don't care, but it's just
probably not going to put that in their ads. But still, Cloverleaf is Tim's choice.
And you recommend Norway, which is also pretty segregated.
Norway, a bunch of Norwegians there.
Yeah, right.
Nothing but Norwegians. God, I love Norway.
Yeah, this guy, he's working on a podcast about Fjord Motor Company.
Very good.
It's officially time for Tim to go. Sorry about that, Tim. But
Detroit History Podcast.
That's right.
.com.
Yeah, exactly. Have fun, and there's everything from, the serious stuff.
A lot of music stuff in there too.
There's music stuff.
Yep.
Beatles,
ABX, techno.
Yeah. Wait, God, you've listened to these things. Yeah, I got them all, and all of that. And there's
Mark's good like that.
Yeah, right.
Thanks. You're so kind, Shawn.
He does his homework.
In fact, you might say he would never be our Geek of the Week.
Oh, man, the geeks have inherited the earth.
Did I do that?
What a dork.
Does him wanting to play with us again mean that he's turning into a geek? Or
works for me.
Dan.
Cool, guys.
It's been real.
Tim Kiska, thank you very much. You're welcome to stick around, or if you need to get back to your show, we've taken a lot of your time, and
Thank you for inviting me.
we're always happy to have a professional amongst us, because normally it's just Mark and then Shawn and I renewing our friendship on a weekly basis.
Exactly. Great pipes, by the way, Tim. Great pipes, by the way, Tim.
Well, that's what everybody tells me. It's amazing. So anyhow, thanks. Yeah. I never think of it in those ways, but
Well, we're running kind of long, so we had a question I wanted to get into. I'm going to set that up for next week because we had a good time debating who the geek of our week is with some of these advice column questions. This week, it's going to be short and sweet because it's Lou, and Lou was short and he was sweet. He was sweet Lou Whitaker, number 1 on your Detroit Tigers. Not a candidate for the Hall of Fame ever, which is outrageous. One of the greatest second basemen of all time, part of the greatest shortstop second base tandem of all time, if not the greatest second base shortstop tandem of all time. Well, the National Baseball Hall of Fame announced its contemporary player ballot on Monday. They included 8 former players vying for introduction into Cooperstown, which is kind of a backdoor way if the writers didn't get them in or the Veterans Committee didn't get them in. Well, here are your candidates.
You like the back door.
We're not friends anymore.
So easy.
Not that there's anything wrong with that.
I didn't mean it that way. I meant, like a roundabout way to tell a story.
Yeah, sure.
A geek of the week.
No, you meant it the other way.
Yeah, I thought we were talking about the McRib anyway. Come on.
That's a future episode. Here's your candidates. Albert Bell. Okay. Barry Bonds. Sorry. They can't make a bust big enough. There's not enough bronze to capture his actual head
He should already
size.
be in the hall.
Roger Clemens.
Should already be in the hall.
Don Mattingly. Fred McGriff.
Oh, Crime Dog.
Crime Dog. Dale Murphy.
Yep.
Rafael Palmeiro.
Yeah.
And Kurt Schilling, all excellent baseball players. Of those guys, I think I could say Barry Bonds stands out. Roger Clemens stands out. The rest of them, maybe Palmeiro, because he had such a high average and hit so many home runs.
Over 500, yeah, even though with roids.
Yeah, and lied about it.
Schilling. Come on.
Did he have
Schilling.
200 wins?
I'm not sure exactly of his stats, but he's a big game pitcher, too.
But look at these 8
We're
players.
really talking baseball.
Of these 8 players, there are 3 of them who are arguably among the best in their position. The others, I could take or leave. Lou Whitaker should absolutely be part of this group. Lou Whitaker should be in the Hall of Fame.
Oh, okay, Homer. Did you watch the World Series, by the way?
You do not think Lou Whitaker is one of the
Sure,
best?
that'd be great. Did you watch the World Series?
I thought you didn't want to talk baseball.
I don't. I'm just curious if you
but
watched.
did you know the World Series involves, is this the World Series of poker?
Did you watch it?
I watched very few moments of it.
For the first time in my life, I did not watch one.
That's the
single
thing. I mean,
pitch.
we'll have to we'll do this in another podcast. But why it slipped from
And
our
it was a great
cultural.
Because college football is on every day of the week.
Got it. That's exactly why it was
That's
on
why.
my mind.
Between the NFL and college football, you are not going to switch over from football.
Well,
to
there's
watch
Tuesday
baseball.
and Wednesday.
Maction. your EMU Eagles looking good.
Right.
So
Chris
the
Creighton.
The Geek of the Week is the Baseball Hall of Fame.
Yeah, the
what is
people
the ballot,
who,
whatever
the
this
people
third
who,
ballot
the
is.
gatekeepers for the Hall of Fame. Come, you got to let Lou in. He's better than most of these jokers, and clean, and a decent human being. And as we found out from Eli last week, not hanging around with the Roughnecks like Ron LaFleur. Roughnecks.
There's an all-night party in room 7609. And you can dance together all night if you've got the time.
Just real quickly, I want to hit that Dearborn topic again. No, I think we're good with that. Duran Duran, rightly enshrined in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, although
a very sad note. Though.
It should just be called the Musical Hall of Fame. What was the sad note?
Oh, you didn't know that? Is it Andy? I forget all the Taylors. I mix them up. Andy
None of them
Taylor,
related.
The guitarist.
Yeah.
Stage 4 cancer.
Oh, well, he's kind of been on the fringe of Duran Duran for a long time.
Did you see Simon LeBont sing with Dolly Parton?
Yeah.
On stage the other day, Jolene?
Mm-hmm.
Really?
Along with Judas Priest singer
Rob Halford?
Yeah, and Sheryl Crow and
No, the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame is always a good show.
All with Dolly Parton. Yeah.
Yeah. It should not be called the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame anymore, though. It should be like the Popular Music Hall of Fame.
So what? Whatever.
I just think let's
Does the name really bother you?
It was Annie, Eurythmics.
Annie Lennox.
She was on stage too. Yeah, it was just it was cool.
Well, and Eminem.
Eminem.
I don't remember him singing with Dolly Parton, but yeah.
Yeah, but no. Steven Tyler went up there and sang with him.
Said,
and
I got to lose yourself in the cleavage. I think that was his song he did with her. It was a duet.
Yeah.
Anyway, Duran Duran was enshrined, and we had a great suggestion from a listener for a cover tune that we're going to get back to. Simple Minds did an amazing cover. But I would like to get back to some cover tunes as we wrap up the year. So here is the Deftones covering one of the Duran Duran's greatest tunes that you might not have heard before, called The Chauffeur. So to honor their Hall of Fame induction and to kick off cover month, it's the Deftones with The Chauffeur.
No. I'm going to have you redo that. All right, go ahead. Walk it up again. You got 10 seconds. Walk it
Here's
up.
the Deftones with The Chauffeur.
Too much space.
On the tar plane.
The glides are moving, all looking for a new place to drive. You sit beside me, so newly charming, sweating dewdrops glisten fresh in your side, and the sun drips down, but it never behind the front of your dress, so shadowy line, and the droning engine throbs in time with your beating heart. Waiting down the lane away, living for another day. Aphids swarm up in the drifting haze. Swim seagull in the sky, the boys heard of the Western Isle. But Iron Lady holds you fast in her gaze, and the sun drips down, baby, baby, line. The front of your dress, so shadowy line, and the jolting engine throbs in time with your beating heart. And the sun drips down, baby, baby, line. The front of your dress, so shadowy line, and the jolting engine throbs in time with your beating heart. And watching lovers part, I feel you smiling. Glass splinters lie so deep in your mind. To tear up from your eyes were the sniffing, brooding lies. But I only watch you leave me further behind. And the sun drips down, baby, line. The front of your dress, so shadowy line, and the jolting engine throbs in time with your beating heart. And the sun drips down, baby, line. The front of your dress, all shadowy line, and the jolting engine throbs in time with your beating heart.
That's a winner.
Damn. That was longer than our visit with Timmy.
You stop criticizing the show you're on.
I'm not criticizing the show.
It was the time flew by.
I like the fact that we play stuff that's
No, and you've educated me that the Deftones have an album that's all cover songs. I had no idea.
Yeah, well, this is inspired by Craig, who wants us to play Simple Minds covering The Call, which I think we will do next week. But I wanted to get Duran Duran in because they are a great new wave band, and they were enshrined. And the chauffeur, besides having one of the sauciest videos by Duran Duran, which is saying a lot if you've seen the unedited Girls on Film.
What kind of sauce?
Yeah.
Sex.
Muy caliente.
Sex sauce?
Yeah.
Or more of a white barbecue, Alabama-style sauce?
Gross.
Think models topless slapping each other
or
with
more
pearls and long
a North
black
Carolina
gloves.
vinegar sauce, a South Carolina mustard
What are you
sauce.
talking about?
More of maybe a sweet baby Ray's.
Oh, okay. Yeah, nice.
Sort of
sticks to the ribs, so to
sort
speak.
of honey and
Sort of
brown
sort of
sugar,
sex.
brown sugar and whatever. Anyway,
Too easy.
and the sun drips
I'm sorry,
down,
we're becoming
bedding
more like
heavy
Drew.
behind the front of your dress, all shadowy lined, and the droning engine throbs in time with your beating heart. That's great stuff from Simon Le Bon and Duran Duran. We would love to get
Do you like the cover though? Did you like the Deftones version?
Yeah, I do. I like
really good.
I like the fuzzy guitar, a little distortion in there. They kind of keep the same pacing and it's got the same sort of emotion. The one thing about this song that's always bothered me though, and I really think Simon Le Bon is a great lyricist, and watching Lover's Part, I feel you smiling. What glass splinters lie so deep in your mind? Holy crap, that's fantastic. But the refrain, sing blue silver, what does that mean? I don't get it. It's such a great song.
Probably a placeholder.
But I don't know. I mean, it's
Did you know Deftones covered a Smith song on that album?
What?
I know. I thought that would get your attention.
Well, maybe we'll just make this the Deftones cover band album month because it sounds like they've tapped into some gold.
Please, 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 let me get what I want. Do you know that song?
Yeah, I do. That's
they cover
okay.
that one.
This would be the first time. That's one of the lyrics. Please let me get my.
No one
this would
knows
be the
that.
first time. You know who else covered the Smiths?
Who?
Radiohead.
Oh, I do. I did know that.
We could sneak them in.
Fine with me.
So we get them in. So please send your nominations, mlsoulofdetroit@gmail.com. You can also call us and make a suggestion. I don't know. I keep mentioning this phone number. It's 313-288-9070. It's Butterfield 89070. And we love to hear from you. We love to get your feedback. And we love to get your donations. In fact,
Uh-oh.
What?
we got a donation from Joe this week. He says, I originally put in $10, but since I'm a U of M grad, my arrogance and overstated self-worth turned it into $20. So Joe sent us $20.
Good for Joe. Thank you, Joe.
I don't know whether he's a Wolverine or a Spartan, but this rivalry's finally starting to work for me. So we got $20 from Joe. So thank you very much. You can donate Spartan or Wolverine. Mark will tell you how.
mlsolodetroit.com, little donate button, and just click on it. Take you to, I almost said YouTube. It's not YouTube. It's PayPal.
PayPal. And I think even Mark would agree when I say, when it comes to donating to Soul of Detroit, go green. Meaning, send us your money.
Yeah, that's nice.
No? Okay.
We have more lyrics for us, by the way?
I would imagine how was the feedback to last week's show? Because this is a very emotional show. You were
Did we do a show last week?
You were being totally absurd regarding the assault in the tunnel.
Oh, yeah. I put that out of my mind.
I wondered what kind of feedback you got from that.
So I do want to apologize to people because this is not the first time that the Spartans have gotten handsy. On behalf of all of my fellow Spartan alumni and fans, I want to apologize to Devin Bush, who was horribly traumatized when he was clotheslined.
There's nothing to do with it.
Can't answer the question.
There's another attack.
Go back to reading lyrics about splinters. What was that? Splinter or something or other?
It's
maybe that's your wheelhouse. Yeah.
a glass splinter that lies so deep in your mind.
I like that. I like that. You like that? You like that lyric?
I do.
It reminds me of the Beck line about choking on the splinters.
I want
earwax dropping on a termite. choking on splinters. I'm messing that up a little bit, but it's
No, but that's not bad. But with the exception of the guys who swung the helmet, who I think, are due to be disciplined
we would never
severely,
play back. God
I
forbid.
want every Spartan involved.
It's Scientologists.
I want them to face the full criminal prosecution that Juwan Howard faced. I'm with Jim Harbaugh. That was an assault, and I want us to get to the bottom. I think criminal charges should come for that.
Nice whataboutism.
Oh, wait a minute. No, I guess we don't want everything investigated.
I didn't realize Beck was a Scientologist. That's
I'm involved in two simultaneous conversations about two different things.
But Tom Cruise, obviously, right?
You really think that's the same thing?
No, I think if you're a Michigan man and you want any kind of assault to face the full scrutiny of the law, then let's go back to Juwan Howard, because I guess we don't really feel that way.
Okay. Nice.
I think Jim Harbaugh is the king of victimhood. He wants to always be the victim. He always wants to be the guy who's got it better than us. Oh, unless you've got it worse than us because we've been picked on. Give me a break.
So
I feel the same way today as I felt last week.
So your feelings about Scientology prevent you from enjoying.
Is this why the Carlos and Shawn show ran late?
Tom Cruise is Les Grossman?
No, not at all. No, I can hate Scientology and still like a Beck album or a Tom Cruise movie.
This is, so
Just
take a step back and fuck your own face.
I cannot like Elon Musk, but still use
Tim
Twitter
left.
or
He
whatever.
asked permission before he used such strong language.
No, I'm trying to steer it away from last week's conversation. That's all. I'm just having
You
fun
asked
with
a question, and
Well, I was trying to use it to segue into feedback.
Oh, I'm sorry. I was trying.
Failed miserably.
Well, I was trying to not go back down to last week. What question did I ask? Oh, about the lyrics and the splinters. Yeah, that was nice.
No, I think you asked about did we get some feedback, and then you started talking.
No,
about,
Mark asked about the feedback.
Because Mark is the radio professional.
He's the producer. Yeah, it's his show.
Do we have any feedback?
Right on cue.
Are we reading? Who's reading first?
I'll start, and then we'll get back. Tess writes, are you on the editorial board? Can you discuss that bizarre Sunday Freep editorial on the AG candidates? I'm assuming that it doesn't get put in the Sunday paper 2 days before the election unless the Democratic Party has very troubling internal polling. Isn't there supposed to be a week-long quiet period by the opinion sides of most newspapers? Anyways, you're a straight shooter. Do you think weighing in on Nestle's drinking habits is the job of reporters and editors, let alone act as if they're certain she or anyone doesn't drink that much? But her most publicized misstep, they're quoting from the editorial now, a slight woman who rarely drinks, she overindulged at a Michigan football tailgate, appears to have been an isolated incident. How does any reporter at Freep know the volume of alcohol she or any politician consumes? They don't. And it's super weird to even speculate. Very, very hackish. So, Tess, I am not a member of the Free Press Editorial Board. The Free Press Editorial Board and the news reporters are completely separate. I think one of the other things separates us is that we usually know what we're talking about on the news side, and the editorial board, who knows what they're talking about. So I don't have any truck with them. I did play some softball with Brian Dickerson, editorial page editor, but that doesn't count. And what Tess is referring to is in Sunday's Free Press, there was an editorial basically saying, for the love of God, do not elect Matt DePerno Attorney General because he is dangerous. And in return, it tried to downplay some of the missteps of Dana Nessel, such as having, as she put it, too many Bloody Marys at the Michigan State tailgate in East Lansing back in 2021. Well, there is kind of a rule that we don't report on what would be considered negative things about candidates in the week before the election. There's sort of a no-fly zone. There are exceptions, of course, but the editorial page, they're there to influence you, and they don't have those same strictures, and they really think Matt DePerno is dangerous. There's one thing I would suggest that I know even Republicans are concerned about with Matt DePerno, is that he's saying lock people up without suggesting that they should have due process, which means being charged, being tried, and then being convicted before they're locked up.
That sounds nice.
So that's kind of scary for someone who aims to be the top law enforcement officer in the state of Michigan. But no, make no mistake, the editorial board feels that their job is to influence you and to help you make what they think is the best decision for the good people of Michigan, and that's why they will run their endorsements today, and they're going to try and influence people right up until the time the polls close. But one thing I want to say, Tess, about your letter that strikes me is, are people worried about the internal Democratic polling, suggesting Dana Nessel's in trouble? No, they're worried about the external public polling, because Dana Nessel, of the top 3 Democrats, is the most endangered candidate, and some of it is her own doing. Yeah. She's made some publicity blunders that are hard to believe. She's an outsider, so she doesn't have that traditional cautious political upbringing. And there's some video that's circulating where she's talking about a drag queen in every school and saying, this hasn't been poll tested. I'm going to say it anyways. And that makes her kind of mavericky, which is kind of nice and exciting, but it's also one of the reasons why she's in a lot of danger, because she says a lot of stuff that's needlessly provocative and causes people to question her judgment. So yes, I think the Free Press is looking at Governor Gretchen Whitmer, Secretary of State Jocelyn Benson, Attorney General Dana Nessel, all Democrats, all of them supported by the Free Press editorial board, not by the Free Press political team or by Free Press reporters. And they see Nessel is the most endangered, and they want to keep her in there, both because they support her and because they have some, I think, legitimate concerns about whether Matt DePerno, who's under criminal investigation, who's had some lawsuits involving his conduct as a lawyer and as a partner in a law firm, whether he's best suited to be the AG. But yeah, they want you to do something, and so they use Sunday to try and push you to do it.
Oh, okay. Somebody else's turn?
I just was waiting you to finish the Hershey's Kisses over there.
I thought that was very well said.
Yeah, articulate.
That means it's your turn, Sean.
Oh, Sean. I thought it was your turn.
I'll remind. Okay, fine. If you're just going to sit there and keep eating candy. John emailed in, the blue wall at work. Check out this article from the Free Press, and it's a link to a very long article about how Michigan's response was when Donovan Edwards retweeted a fairly anti-Semitic tweet, and what happened then after and how they handled that. And a lot of people were surprised that he started the Michigan State game and that there really wasn't much of a punishment for him.
Exactly right. And I thought Rainier Sabin had a great column asking some questions about how a man who came from a high school where there's a fairly significant Jewish population, goes to a college that has a very large Jewish population, can be so tone deaf, and how there can be no consequences whatsoever, even to the point where he doesn't sit out a series.
Well,
he made his first
I will say this.
start.
I will say this. I would punish him, I mean, sure, there should be some kind of education. Some kind of education with him, although I don't know if that would work. There's all this talk about the whole team going to the Holocaust Museum in West Bloomfield or Farmington Hills. I don't know where the dividing line is there, but pretty close to where he was. And someone pointed out to me that he has been there easily a couple of times because of where he went to high school. Like, they take field trips there. So I don't know how much more education he needs. As far as the punishment, does it really matter? I mean, is it that big a deal that he played one play? Like, what if he sat out where he didn't start, but he comes in play number 2? Is that a punishment?
So
I think that's just kind of weak in my opinion. If you want to punish him, then keep him out the whole first quarter, I guess, or the first half, whatever they deem appropriate. But as far as starting versus not starting, it's just fucking lame because he could just come in the second place. So what's the difference?
I think Rainier's point was that this is the kind of thing that has led other coaches and other institutions to admonish people, and the lack of consequences and the lack of being willing to even comment on this from the University of Michigan.
I would agree with
that. Is somewhat significant and somewhat startling, and I'm
very surprised how quick it disappeared, and part of that is probably because of the rivalry.
Because a bunch of Spartans went nuts in a hallway.
Yeah,
but no.
That university has a very important history with the Jewish people. I mean, that's why a lot of East Coast people went to Michigan. I think he even mentioned that in the article because
and he talks about
stonewalled from going to Ivy League schools. So
my daughter went to the Taubman Center yesterday to have her throat looked at, and we went by Stephen Ross's many buildings on our way down State Street.
the Al Glick Field House. I mean, there's a lot of big Jewish benefactors to the university. I think that's a big surprise to a lot of people. So yeah, and here's where I look at the other side though. I don't know what was said to Donovan, right? I don't know who sat him down and what was said, and if that message sunk in. I don't know what kind of punishment there is. I think the response publicly has been pretty lame.
And Ward Manuel being real quiet, but
absolutely no. That's another great point. The fact that Ward has said nothing on it.
Yeah, well, he said something, but they didn't make it. They didn't publish it,
yeah,
right? They didn't release it.
It was hard to find.
Yeah, right.
And so I don't want to say that we take a 20-year-old man and crucify him or anything like that, but I will say Michigan last week in particular, and obviously I'm saying this is a Spartan, so you can discount this heavily if you like, but they're real big on accountability, and we need to get to the bottom of this, unless it's their guy. But
please, come on, don't even compare the two events.
I can't wait to see the full extent of this investigation. I think we're going to find out that neither team covered themselves in glory in that hall.
I thought it was amazing, though, that Jacoby Windman, the press conference after the game, said he didn't know anything about it, about the attack.
Well, he's from Vegas, right? Everything that happens in Vegas stays in Vegas. Maybe he still had that mentality.
Once again, that post-game response, I think, was pretty awful.
So I didn't see it, so I can't speak to it. But yeah, if they're saying, I don't know what happened.
Him in the press conference, did you see it? And he said no. And next thing you know, he's one of these.
That's what Windman said?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Well, so
and he's standing in front of it. And you can see him on video.
Sure.
So, Mike.
Here's a problem for
throwing
Windman.
An uppercut.
And I'll just tell you this as a union guy. We're told in our steward training, if somebody comes to you with an issue, you're better off to just answer it directly because you can be fired
for a
non-fireable offense if you lie about it. Lying is worse than the crime. So Windman, again, he's a young guy, so maybe he screwed up. But yeah, I don't excuse any of these guys saying, I didn't see nothing when you're throwing hammers at a dude.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's my turn. There we go.
And that's why I didn't like what Tucker said post-game either.
Yeah, it was it was ugly all the way around.
The director of football operations, he should have been right on that.
It was ugly all the way around.
He was standing right there, too.
Unfortunately, the letter I'm about to read is also about the same thing. So help me, please, God. Mike, I thoroughly enjoy your show each week. Sometimes I enjoy your humor, and sometimes I don't.
That's a great letter.
But so mostly I do.
Cyrus? Cyrus?
You want to do it?
He's too quiet. I guess he wants Shawn to keep going.
You want to do it? No. I'm sorry.
I know
Eric,
this letter. Okay.
Just keep going.
I do not think you were trying to be funny when you stated your position on the Tunnelgate situation. You were totally wrong regarding this. I would just say you're totally wrong. I didn't intend attend either school, and I am a fan of both universities. I look forward to watching their games each week. I'm a fan of all schools in Michigan as I was born and raised here. I would ask you to totally flip the situation. Game at state, state wins, and U of M players assault state player. How would you feel then? You say if someone calls you little brother, they should expect to be slapped by you. No, everybody. Mike should expect to be slapped by everybody. Well, that's battery. Oh, I guess it is. And I hope you don't get arrested for it. If you feel inferior by the Michigan elitists, that's in quotes, that's a problem you need to deal with internally. Get over it. It's just sports. There's no excuse for hitting off the field by players unless it's self-defense. It didn't look like self-defense by the MSU players to me in those videos. Thanks, Eric. P.S.
Show rules.
Although I am a fan of all Michigan schools, Eastern Michigan has got to go back to their old uniforms, and that gray field is just bad marketing.
Thank you.
Like the blue field of Boise State. I wrote a column about that god-awful gray field at my alma mater several years ago, and Eastern,
awful.
They were so mad at me. And
why? Because they made a stupid decision, and you had an opinion about it.
It was terrible. It was, and that I should.
And while we're at it, go back to being
alum.
the Hurons.
I don't care about that.
They should have been the emus.
See what you would say about it.
I'm still mad at them for not being the emus, which would have been an awesome, distinct mascot and perfect with their initials.
I'm still mad at them building that new field house. Of course, it's probably 15 years old now because the old gym, I remember seeing the Thomas the Bowen Field House.
Loved
I saw
Bowen.
the Thomas brothers there and Marcus Kennedy. When they went on a Sweet 16 run in the early 90s, that place was awesome for a basketball game.
So
The Thomas brothers.
So
Carl and Charles
To play pickup ball and get dunked
What?
on.
Did
Get
you?
dunked on by him. Yeah.
Really? Love it.
I think Eric started off strong. He lost a little momentum in the course of that email.
Yeah. Let's just stop it. I thoroughly enjoy your show each week, and you're funny.
No, I want to hear if you respond. Do you really think you would slap someone if they came up and called you little brother? Are you standing by that quote? Because I think that's utterly ridiculous.
Oh, I see. So I
said-
don't comment about the letter.
I want to.
Okay.
I want to clarify my comment. Don't be surprised if you get slapped. I will reserve the right to slap you or not slap
Over
you,
words?
but you could be slapped. No, it's not about words. It's about attitude. It's about the arrogance.
So
it's
over
about
words.
the
What about
offensiveness.
your attitude
It's
towards
about
it?
the elitism. I'm merely responding
your
to stimuli.
inferiority complex.
Eric,
about
you're
this
right.
is
No,
ridiculous.
it's
Eric,
it's
of
not
course you're
that.
right, Eric.
It's this. I told you I grew up in a very privileged community, and so I have a real problem with people who think that they have a better pot to piss in because of where they live,
But
because
that's
of
you
who their
projecting
daddy
that,
is.
that in an individual situation. That's you projecting that onto the individual.
No,
Because they're a Michigan fan, you deem
No,
them
no,
to be an elitist asshole.
As I said, I have tons of friends who are Michigan
you?
fans.
Do you?
I do.
We're not friends. I mean, I'm sitting across from you.
Yeah, no, you're a friend,
I have
and
tons of friends that are Michigan fans.
I do.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, and I've been going to Ann Arbor since 7th grade. It's one of my favorite towns in Michigan. In fact, I was just there yesterday. Had a wonderful afternoon. No violence whatsoever. It was perfect.
Where'd you go?
Where'd we go? Well, we went to the medical center.
Distracting him again.
And
Oh,
then,
yeah.
And then we kind of walked around and
He already said that.
And did you run into Cyrus when you were there?
he may have been there. I don't know. But no, it's a great place. But I do think anybody who thinks that they can demean anybody else. I don't like people like that. I don't like it in life, and I certainly don't like it in this kind of thing.
No one does. It doesn't mean you can get to assault them.
No, I'm just saying it's an option. I'm issuing a general alert that if
You're warning people not to say the wrong thing to you. You're gonna violate them in some way physically.
I'm saying it could happen.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. I can't believe that's where you're at. Can we just play some?
But I do like Eric. Eric sends us a lot of emails, and he is a very wise man, and I'm taking
thank you,
everything
Eric.
he said very seriously, because when reasonable people have something to say, you need to listen to them. And we appreciate your feedback at mlsoulofdetroit@gmail.com. If you really want to support the show, you can subscribe to our YouTube channel, which is ML Elric. It really helps us if you can subscribe. Plus, you can sign up for alerts so you know when we're going to go live, which usually is the end of the Carlos and Shawn podcast plus 90. And I got to ask you about a Carlos and Shawn issue, meaning a sports issue. Did you see the picture in the Free Press of J.J. McCarthy rearing back to throw a pass, and his play card is open to the camera?
I didn't see that.
Is this something we should be, as Michigan fans, concerned about?
No, because they change them every week.
Do they? Okay. Okay.
They change the codes in the play, yeah.
Because I'm reading, it's like TJ Grizzly, that's a double L, whatever. I was like, oh shit, man. If this guy is just announcing everything they got there, that would seem to be.
And not every play is done on the play card either. Right, Shawn?
Right. Mark.
Well, I was waiting for your expertise to weigh in.
Right. That's my expertise. Right.
Okay. Well, anyways, I think he
on our little high school football team when I played, we had those. Our quarterback
You were
had
the
those,
center?
so we could run guard really and defend. But who
nose
cares
tackle,
about,
right?
Who cares about that?
You were guard?
And
Right
I
or
could
left
seal
side?
the edge. I'm very hard to move. Anyway, that's not the point of me bringing this up. But our quarterback had it. Even that little team had to change them out every week because they would actually scout other schools and stuff. So there's no big deal. You just got to learn a different lingo and different numbers every week.
Okay, I thought it was.
Yeah, no, it is.
It was one of those things. Like, oh shit, there's a big game coming up.
But it's kind of like when Shawn, you were talking about holding up the cards and kind of decoding the cards on the sideline.
Yeah.
Those get changed all the time.
They do.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right. Anybody else surprised by what happened in Champaign-Urbana?
Not really.
Oh, okay.
No, that was.
Well, you predicted it would go the other way.
I did, but
I think everybody did. Yeah.
Surprised.
I mean, if you look at the stats, you'd be surprised seeing the final score because once again, Michigan State is very, very good in red zone defense for whatever reason. Probably because they're not scared of getting burnt
Jacob's
40 yards down the field, huh?
Yeah, when you stay 30 yards off a receiver and
Yeah.
you're on the 4-yard line, 30 yards is like in the men's room. So maybe their deficiencies in the defensive backfield play to their advantage.
I think so. I'm not totally joking. They're very, very good.
They got some
Close
guys
to the
back,
goal line.
and
that helped.
we thank the Wolverines for
Great
helping us
field goal.
identify
Great
some-
field goal
some talent.
at the end of the game too. Great clock management, by the way.
Well, actually,
Were you yelling at the TV?
Actually, none of the kickers from the state of Michigan did very well on Saturday, which surprised me because Moody is a beast and he missed a couple
50-yarders. They were both over 50 yards. Yeah,
No, I know, but I mean, he was hitting 50-yarders in Ann Arbor. I mean, that was
54. I think it's forgivable.
Well, they somehow eked out the win, 59 to whatever, 0. So, but what?
Sorry.
Oh no, sorry. It just
Sean's
hurt.
bored.
No.
He ate so much candy. Now
No,
he's digesting it and falling asleep.
No. It hurt because a piece of hair on my ass got stuck as I moved in my seat to the pants, and it was pulling.
Wow. So the explanation was not really better.
I'd rather you were just bored.
Couldn't you see? I was trying to get it unstuck.
Go shave your butt.
Now I know why Tim left. I wish Manscaped still sponsored us.
No, Mark, isn't that part of it though?
The Lawnmower
Getting older.
69.0.
For yourself.
You don't have any hair on your ass?
I have plenty. I've never had it stuck anywhere.
Cyrus, where are you in my hour of need?
Can you dig that?
Can you dig it? Can you dig it?
Who is it? Mr. Pizza Guy.
Again?
Mr. Pizza Guy, sir. Order the double cheese and sausage.
Right here, dude.